Sunny Gavaskar joins us live on the program. He was at the ground witnessing the carnage that the Australian batsmen displayed. Outstanding batting performance there from the Australian team to chase down 200 plus. Sunny, firstly, did it give you a feeling of deja vu? It felt like Asia Cup all over again because India put up a par sort of a total and then the Indian bowlers failed to defend it.
In a sense, it did. Because what we've seen over the last few years really has been that has been one of the areas where India has suffered, that they have not been able to defend good scores. Maybe when Bumrah comes into the team, it might be a completely different situation because he's the kind of bowler who can get you wickets at the top. India didn't get wickets at the top either because Australia got off to a flying start. But having said that, it's only the first match, and don't forget, Australia are world champions. So, they're expected to do extraordinary things.
Okay, not looking for excuses for the Indian bowling performances, and I'll get into details about a few players. But did you think, because I believe now it's North India, winters may be setting in very soon, you do see a lot of dew around. Did that play a role? Did the toss play a role?
I don't know. I don't think there was so much of a question of dew because, we didn't really see the fielders or the bowlers trying to use the duster to try and dry their fingers. So I don't think that's an excuse at all. It's just that we didn't actually bowl as well. For example, that 19th over, now that's a real concern because when somebody like a Bhuvneshwar Kumar is going for so many runs every single time when he's expected, he's in 18 deliveries, he's given in 3 matches which India has lost against Pakistan, against Sri Lanka, and now here against Australia. He's given away 49 runs, which is almost like 3 runs per ball. I think somebody with his experience and his caliber, you expect that maybe he would give maybe 35, 36 runs in those 18 deliveries. But that's not what has happened. So that really is an area of concern.
You make a valid point, Saibhai, about that 19th over, and that's been a trend. We saw it at the Asia Cup, those 2 games that India lost, one against Pakistan, the other against Sri Lanka, and it happened here, that 19th over going for plenty of runs, thereby making the final over redundant, even though this one went to the final over, but you could say that, Australia almost won it with an over to spare. That's how comfortable they were in that position. Just the over before that, Saibhai, the 18th over, now Harshal Patel comes in to bowl, gives away 22 runs. You reckon that was also crucial? And what does that tell you? Because Bhuvneshwar, we understood maybe the kind of role that he was to be given was to get wickets with the new ball. That clearly also isn't happening. Harshal, you expected would be that guy who would come in towards the death and then control, maybe pick up wickets. That wasn't happening for Harshal either.
Yes, that's a bit of a surprise because Harshal generally is a very mingy bowler. But then again, one mustn't forget the fact that he's coming back to playing after a long break. So that is the reason it is so important when we talk about workload, etc. This is the reason it's so important for the bowlers to have plenty of overs under their belt before they get to the World Cup. And which is the reason, if it is a question of maybe playing Bumrah and Harshal Patel, even in a couple of the one-day games after the T20 series, just to get them, miles in their legs as well as in their bowling shoulders, getting the rhythm going. That is something that the Indian management will have to look at.
Just going slightly before that, Umesh Yadav, the selection of the Indian team, because of course, the bigger question mark is over the Indian bowling. You've got an Umesh Yadav who comes in. I understand he leaked a lot of runs, but I can understand where he's coming from. He wasn't in the scheme of things, wasn't playing any white ball cricket, actually was playing some sort of county cricket, got injured, comes here, comes into the team at the 11th hour, then is drafted into the 11th. So maybe the circumstances also weren't right, but then he comes in to play this particular game. Would you have gone with an Umesh Yadav or rather have someone like a Deepak Chahar come into the team? Because he's been in the scheme of things. He was the one who travelled to Asia Cup, had been bowling in the nets. Who would you have picked between an Umesh Yadav and a Deepak Chahar?
That's a very good question. And I think it's a question best addressed to the team management as to what their thinking was, that to take somebody like an Umesh Yadav who's not even in the reserves of the standbys for the World Cup and not playing Deepak Chahar. Because you're right, I've been saying about the fact that yes, Deepak Chahar also is coming out of an injury, but you need these miles, these leg miles, when you're bowling, you need that under your belt before you go into a big tournament like the World Cup. And if you've got a Deepak Chahar as your standby bowler, and suddenly in Australia, he hasn't played anything now, then suddenly in Australia somebody gets injured and he has to come in, he's not going to be able to do a proper job because he wouldn't be able to get the rhythm. So yes, that's a question that is best addressed at the next media conference to the team management as to why they picked Umesh Yadav and not Deepak Chahar. Unless, of course, Deepak Chahar had a niggle or something like that, which we don't know about.
Right. Though I did see images of Deepak Chahar running around the ground before the play started, also bowling a bit. But you could be right, maybe not match fit, we don't know. But it's a bit surprising, though, that he has been there with the team. I was there in UAE while he was there with the team, bowling regularly in the nets. You would have thought that he was the next man in case someone got injured, but that wasn't the case. You had someone like an Umesh Yadav just drafted in, as I mentioned, at the 11th hour and then gets a game as well. Clearly looked rusty. But on that subject, he went for a lot of runs, Umesh Yadav, in that first over. He bowls, comes back into the second over, picks those two very crucial wickets, one of Smith, the other of Maxwell. After that, doesn't bowl. Did it surprise you a bit? Here's a bowler who's picked up two crucial wickets and only bowls 2 overs, doesn't come back after that to bowl a over at all.
Well, possibly, I think at that stage, the thinking would have been that, we leaked runs in that first over.
Yeah.
And so maybe the confidence was not quite there about giving him the balance number of overs. But this is what sometimes can happen. And that is the reason why it's always good to go in with a sixth bowling option. When you have a sixth bowling option, then, when somebody is leaking runs, you can actually give the other bowler, and he might not be a regular bowler, but you can give him a couple of overs just to be able to see whether he can stem the flow of runs.